Hi there, this is Alex, and today I'll be breaking down the spell synergy system and showing off some possible cool combos with it in Noita, the action roguelite where every single pixel is physically simulated, which yes, gets even more unpredictable than you might expect. This video has been sponsored by the developer of Noita, allowing me to make this breakdown by giving me early hands-on with the full 1.0 release, which I've honestly been anticipating for quite a while. If Noita looks like your type of action roguelite, you can find a link to it on PC right at the top of the video description. I had Noita on my radar, patiently waiting for it to be finished, which brings us to now, where I dove pixelized face first straight into its brutally challenging mage spelunking gauntlets. If you're unaware, Noita is a game entirely about spells, wands, and creating the most potent combinations with both, but this custom spell crafting system can be a bit intimidating at the start, which means you won't be surviving for too long without properly harnessing it. I'm going to be trying to explain the core fundamentals of how everything works, while showing off some of my personal favorite synergies I managed to put together, to hopefully spark some ideas in you so you can go out there and make something even better. The two very first things you need to understand about the wands you'll be coming across is if they use shuffle or not, and how many spells they cast with one click of the fire button. If the wand is listed as shuffle yes, this means the wand will fire off whatever spells you have socketed onto it completely randomly, kind of limiting your potential for creating purposeful combos. However, if you put just one spell, numerous of the same, or many that don't really matter which order they fire, these shuffle wands can still have plenty of practical use. Instead, if you find a wand listed as having no shuffle, that means the spells will fire off in the order they're placed left to right, or multiples at a time if it has a higher number cast count, and this is where things start to get pretty interesting. One of my favorite single spells in the game is Lightning Bolt, but on its own, it can be very dangerous to use thanks to its very short range, which makes you Palpatine yourself quite often. However, with a no shuffle wand and a few key spell types, like the Luminous Drill with timer we have here, which will shoot off the spell following it from a distance, we can make this all play out a little safer. By assigning two of these luminous drills with a timer ending with that lightning bolt, we have now created a pretty good long distance version of that powerful electric explosion. There are also spell modifiers that can change the properties of the spells following it, like in this setup I really liked, where I had a passive frontal shield spell, followed by a multicast modifier which allowed 3 spells to be cast at once, then adding a fire arc and raw damage modifier which will affect the following 3 projectile spells then after. This made for a strong firewall of projectiles that was somewhat of a simple setup, but it did get the job done pretty well during combat. Also, you will notice this wand has a bonus effect on it that fires 2 spells at once, which overrides its listed spell cast count of 1 at a time. So that was shuffle and the amount of spells a wand can cast and a few examples of synergies, but now let's take a look at the next stats being cast delay and recharge time. The cast delay means that the wand will fire each spell at that interval until it reaches the end of the line of the spells socketed on it, to where it then adheres to the recharge time timer, kind of like having to reload the wand's magazine before you can fire it off again. These are 2 very important stats because they can greatly affect the damage output of the spells you socket onto it. Here, for example, I have a wand with a really low cast and recharge timer with an added built-in passive that further increases its firing speed. After adding on a projectile modifier that makes the following spells shoot out in all directions, along with the unpredictable nature of the bouncing burst projectile, well, it created this. This is pretty much the exact same thing that would happen if you fired the Death Star straight into a giant glass prism, or an average evening in Noita. The raw speed of your spells isn't everything though, because your wand has to have enough mana to be able to keep up with how fast it's firing, which now brings us to mana max and mana charge speed. Each spell and modifier will add a higher mana requirement onto your wand, and if you're quickly blowing through it, you'll find that you won't be able to use your amazing little spell setup quite as much as you probably want. In this example, I wanted to make a combo that could create a ranged water source that would also become electrified, but needed a fairly high amount of mana to power it. I added a firebolt with a trigger, which will shoot another spell after the firebolt comes in contact with something, followed by a circle of thunder modifier that would electrify the next firebolt with a trigger, which would then spawn a rain cloud at that final impact point. Combining all of that together, I was able to create safe little ponds of electricity from a distance with little importance on how quickly I could fire it off, thanks to its lingering nature. These elemental interactions are a big part of Noita, and harnessing them for your own gain is a key component. Here, for example, I wasn't expecting this synergy when I made it, but I attached a burst of air spell to a long distance cast modifier, which, you know, is just a puff of air from a few feet away, nothing special. However, if you combine the oxygen this air spell gives off with any open flames, it would create an on-the-fly ranged flamethrower thanks to the air igniting the fire. If I moved the projectile around slow enough, I could even daisy chain the effect into itself to continually perpetuate the flame past its origin point. Yes, just like I warned in the beginning, this all gets much more unpredictable than you would initially expect, and this is all just the tip of the wizardry iceberg. Now, looking at the final stats of our wand here, the last two are pretty straightforward, being capacity, which is how many spells you can socket onto it, and spread, which is the accuracy in which the spells will fire towards your crosshair. Some spells like Earthquake are so destructive just on their own and don't require any real aiming that even a 1 capacity wand with horrible accuracy can still be useful to power one-off spells such as this. Outside of what just your wands can provide, there are also passive character perks you'll be amassing in between floors, which can also affect your spells. Here I got the passive perk Homing Shots and found a solid use for it with the usually difficult to use effectively unstable crystals, which explode when they come in contact with an enemy, kinda like little proximity bombs. With Homing Shots though, this turned a spell I wouldn't likely use into a fire and forget Homing Zirconium Explosive of Death. Please don't tell me if my rock facts are wrong. Noita really doubles down on its spell synergy system, and your best way to tackle its steep difficulty is to outgame the game by creating the most destructive spells that likely no one, not even the designers, have yet to see. Speaking of, a special thanks to Nola Games for supporting the channel and sponsoring this video, and again, you can find a link to Noita on PC right at the top of the video description. That's it, that's all I had for you today. Hopefully you enjoyed, and make sure to let me know down in the comments if you did, or if you didn't, let someone else know. As always, this has been Alex from Boomstick Gaming, and I hope all of your attempts surely end better than this one did. I'll see ya.